Thank you very much, Senator Reid, and I appreciate you holding this hearing. You're right, the implications of how we resolve this issue are going to have huge consequences for our economy, and we've got to get it right. I appreciate our witnesses being here today and the thoughtful assistance that they're giving us in evaluating this. If we're going to encourage private money that's still sitting on the sidelines to return to security markets, we need to provide the appropriate balance between the strong standards that will align the interests of lenders, issuers, and investors with the ability of the securitization process to work. Section 941 of the Dodd-Frank legislation mandates that our financial regulators craft rules requiring entities involved in the securitization process to retain a certain level of risk of the assets being securitized. The intent is to better align the incentives among the chain of originators, securitizers, and investors. It's important to note that the Federal Reserve's October 2010 study cautioned that risk retention is not a panacea, and that if rules are not implemented carefully by asset class, credit availability could be disrupted at a time when it is desperately needed. This was also the same reason that the Senate made two key changes to the section when deliberating on the Dodd-Frank legislation. First is that I refer to as the Landrieu-Isaacson-Hagan amendment that required regulators to establish a category of well-underwritten single-family loans that would be exempt from the bill's risk retention requirements. The second was my amendment, which directed regulators to consider risk retention forms and requirements in order to ensure that regulators consider the unique nature of the commercial mortgage-backed securities market. After months of sometimes very heated interagency debate, the Joint Risk Retention Rule proposal was put out for comment on March 31st this year. The proposal is 367 pages and seeks comments on more than 150 different questions. While many experts are still trying to understand all the consequences of the proposed rule to the impact of capital formation in these markets, the early feedback and comments suggest that more work needs to be done in this area, and several of our witnesses argue that a re-proposal is warranted. This rule will have a broad impact, and I'm interested in learning from our witnesses today how it's going to impact the securitization market and our economy. If necessary, what changes should regulators consider that will provide the flow of credit and strengthen the underwriting and align the interests of lenders, issuers, and investors? Ultimately, we need rules that are strong enough to protect our economy, but that can adapt to changing market conditions and promote credit availability, which will spur job growth for millions of Americans. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and again, I appreciate your holding this hearing.